Chapter 2. Inspector Prospect Anna Weston and her mentor approached the Bridgewater deputy's office just as the dawn sun crested the trees on the horizon, threatening to burn away the morning fog. An urgent middle-of-the-night assignment handed down directly from the captain of the Terran City Watch had sent the two inspectors 20 miles east of the city on horseback. It was a chilly, late autumn morning, and despite her thick overcoat, Anna could feel the cold wind of the extended ride biting into her very bones.
"Wake up, rookie," Inspector Nolan Oakgrove shouted. "I know, it's damn fucking early, but there must be a good reason for the captain to send us all the way out here in the sticks."
"I am awake, old man," Anna responded as they rode side by side into the small rural town. "I believe it was you who was falling asleep." She smiled at her preceptor, her face numb and tingly from the damp morning air.
"Oh, hush, don't get all in a tizzy, kid," Nolan chuckled. "Besides, I don't need to be awake for any of this. I ain't the one who'll be doing the work today."
"Lovely. I thought you were going to cut me loose months ago anyways, Nolan. But here I am, still doing all your work for you." Over the last year, their relationship had become less formal and more friendly. Nolan was a wise man and one of the best inspectors the Watch had ever seen, despite his teaching methods being a little more of the old-school mentality. Anna had eventually come to enjoy his lessons, built upon the idea of sink or swim. And Nolan had come to enjoy Anna's smart-ass back-talking and spunk. In a way, they were more similar than either of them ever wanted to admit.
"Ain't no way I'm gonna cut you loose and go back to writing my own reports," Nolan jested. "But I do suppose the cap is probably tired of paying you to do all my shit for me."
Anna was the youngest inspector on the City Watch, an Inspector Prospect, nearly ready to transition to the title of inspector. She was the top of her class at the university and was an extremely bright and talented Inspector Prospect in the academy. Inquisitive, with a mind as sharp as a knife and a personality full of defiantly youthful energy. She had come a long way since she came under Nola's tutelage, but still, she had a long way to go. Both of them knew that it was almost time for her to break free of her preceptorship and figure out her own ways of doing things. But for now, one more job under Inspector Nolan's eyes wouldn't hurt. The little town of Bridgewater was situated in a densely forested area on the east side of the Great River. Under Terran control and acting as an extension of the eponymous city of Terra, Bridgewater functioned independently of the city as a small logging community turned town. Following the Great Reset centuries earlier, reforestation efforts along the Great River gave birth to a bustling economy of logging, and thus towns like Bridgewater formed around the sawmills. It was quite rare for the City Watch to send inspectors so far out of the city proper, as Bridgewater had its own deputized law enforcement. But occasionally an aberrant situation would require the city's experts to intercede. Anna and Nolan found the Bridgewater deputy's office on the far end of town, along a cobblestone pathway overrun with weeds that had been nipped by the morning frost. The building was more of a shack than a proper office.
"I've seen chicken coops bigger than this fucking place,"
Nolan whispered as they dismounted from their horses and approached the door. Nolan knocked on the rickety wooden door, and it unexpectedly flew open on loose hinges.
"Sorry, been meaning to get that fixed. It don't stay shut,"
came a voice from inside the room. Anna and Nolan stepped inside. It was a quaint, single-room outfit. Half of it an office, and the other half a single-celled jail and drunk tank. Nolan resisted shaking his head in sheer embarrassment. Anna could almost read his mind from the expression on his face. It would be something like,
"Damn it, I hate this small-town bullshit."
"Good morning, inspectors," a man said, nervously stumbling through the process of making morning tea. Deputy Yeats was an elderly man, well into his 80th year, having served as deputy of Bridgewater for most of that time. Being the deputy of a tiny rural town on the outskirts of a major city was, for the most part, a pretty uneventful job for an old-timer. Very little happens in a place like Bridgewater. Little more than the occasional domestic disturbance, property dispute, or some bored kids wreaking havoc, as kids tend to do. A certain aura of anxiety rested over the deputy's face that was inconsistent with the level of stress expected from a job like his. Both inspectors caught notice of this and shared an inquisitive glance. "Good morning, sir. We got here as quickly as we could, given the hour of the day. How may the city watch be of assistance to you?" Anna started in, trying to maintain a sense of professionalism, a trait for which her mentor was not the strongest role model. The old deputy shakily held out 2 steamy cups of morning tea, one for each inspector. Nolan gave him a nod of appreciation, while Anna held up a hand in polite refusal and whispered out an appreciative "no thank you," with a hearty smile. The deputy shrugged, then raised the cup to his lips and started drinking it himself.
"Pleased to make your acquaintance, inspectors. I'm Deputy Yeats."
"The pleasure is mine, sir. I am Inspector Prospect Anna Weston, and this is my Inspector Precept Nolan Oakgrove." She held out a hand, and Yeats welcomed it with a gentle handshake. His hand was frail and bony.
"Thank you both so much for coming. I called your captain requesting assistance in the middle of the night, and I appreciate the quick response more than you know."
The deputy gulped.
"Gulp? We had an incident. I think it best to show you if y'all don't mind."
Anna and Nolan shared a look of curiosity, maybe a bit of annoyance. What could possibly be so important that he couldn't just tell us about it here and now, Anna wondered, then reminded herself to be patient. Professional. She smiled and reached for the door that was swinging loosely on its hinges. "After you, sir," she replied. Deputy Yeats guided the inspectors to the northwest side of town, where the river bent around a massive lumberyard. The morning sun was bright and warm, evaporating the frosty dew that covered grass. The fog had lifted, and the warmth was a welcome change from the early morning chill. The rapid current of the great river could be heard flowing as the group approached their destination. As they neared the main building of the sawmill, the inspectors were met by a group of loggers standing in a circle, talking quietly amongst themselves. They held their hats to their chests. The sawmill was at a total standstill. No smoke was seen from the stacks, and no sounds of machinery could be heard from within the long building on the water's edge. Just upstream of the mill, logs were piling up in the river as the river hogs normally responsible for driving the logs downstream and into the mill, all stood on the distal riverbank, without intervening on the growing logjam.
"Well, that's odd. No logging means no money for this town. Must be something pretty damn big to cease operations," Nolan said to Anna.
The crews of mill workers and lumberjacks watched the officers walk by without saying a word, respectfully keeping their distance as the deputy led the inspectors down to the river's edge, where the log catches were built to direct logs from the river into the sawmill. There, they were greeted by a younger man in an officer's uniform.
"Deputy Armstrong,"
Yeats called out to the man. Deputy Armstrong waved the officers down closer to the lumber chutes, where he stood by silently as the group approached the scene.
"Holy shit!"
Nolan saw it first. Anna approached the chute and was immediately taken aback with what she found. There, stuck in the logging chutes, was a young girl, or rather the corpse of a young girl. Maybe 15 or 16 years of age, with long, silvery white hair, wearing soggy white robes stained with blood and dirty river water. Her hair floated in the shallow water surrounding her, and her skin was as pale as the midnight moon. "The night shift foreman found her right where she lays now," Deputy Armstrong explained. He was coming onto the night shift when he noticed this girl, clearly dead, stuck in the production line. She appears to have drifted in with the lumber sometime last night and got sucked up into the catches." "Drowned?" asked Anna.
"Well, we assumed so at first," Yeats replied. "Most logically, just some horrible accident, but—"
"But what?" Nolan asked.
"But then we took a closer look. She has multiple stab wounds to her chest and torso. Not to mention all the cuts along both of her forearms. They may be defensive wounds, we reckon. Soon as we noticed that, we called you in. We made sure not to move the poor thing or do anything to fuck up the crime scene, inspectors. Clearly, this is not something we have ever dealt with in Bridgewater."
Anna bent down to inspect the girl's body closer. She needed to get a better look at the wounds, but the young girl was twisted and jammed up in the logging mechanisms, so Anna instructed the local authorities to pull the corpse out of the water. They lifted the girl's limp body out of the shallow water of the chute and lay her gently on the dry ground. There, Anna went to work, using all of her training in forensics, accounting for all the wounds and injuries. 5 stab wounds, as she could make out, scattered defensive lacerations to her arms, a very thin and faint ligature mark on her neck, probably partially strangled by some kind of thin rope or line. The rigor had already started to set in, and the girl's legs and one arm were mangled, most likely from being crushed by logs entering the catches.
"What is your assessment, Inspector?"
Nolan asked, standing behind his preceptee. "Well, this isn't just any old drowning, that's for damn sure. The wounds are pretty obviously stab wounds. Wouldn't have been caused by the logs or debris in the river. Now, these were clearly put there by some sort of small dagger or knife. I would guess by their size."
"I concur, and you might just get a gold star for the day after all. But keep going. Need more details, kid."
"Thanks." Anna glared back at Nolan. "Judging by the wounds on her arms, she was most likely attacked and subsequently murdered. My best guess is her body was disposed of in the river, where she floated downstream until she flowed up into the sawmill. Do we know who this girl is, Deputy?" "Yes, we are actually certain of who she is," Armstrong replied. "Her name is Marjorie Blackstone. Her family is pretty notorious around these parts." "What do you mean by that?" Anna questioned. "Well, her family is quite eccentric, I guess you could say."
"They're fucking weirdos," Deputy Yeats interrupted. "That's what my young partner here is trying to get at."
"Yeah, that is what I meant. I was trying to be, a little more tactful about it, though."
"Ain't nothing tactful about this kind of work, kid. Ain't I right, inspectors?" Yeats chuckled.
"Have you gone to notify her parents yet?" Anna asked, politely ignoring the deputy's slightly misguided idiom.
"No, like I said, we really felt it best to seek expert assistance with this one," replied Yeats.
Anna could see the discomfort in the old officer's face. These were 2 small-town officers, clearly in over their heads. She quietly sighed in frustration. The realization that this entire investigation was about to become her own problem. "Was there any other suspicious activity reported last night?" she probed further.
"Nope. Only other report that came in last night was for your run-of-the-mill coyote sighting. Mangy little fuckers. It ain't uncommon for them wild-ass mutts to be getting at folks' livestock in the autumn," replied Yeats.
Anna looked over the body one last time, trying to process all the information systematically in her head. She had in her hand several pieces to a puzzle, but no idea how they all fit together yet. "I need more context," she thought. "Who is this poor girl, and who would do such a thing to her?" "All right, deputies, have some helpers take her to the morgue and allow these men to get back to work," instructed Anna. "And for us, I think we need to go pay a visit to the Blackstone family." Anna sighed. Notifying family members that a loved one had died was definitely one of, if not the worst, part of this job, especially when it was a kid, whose family would be the primary suspects by default. Anna realized that her day would not be easy, and she now regretted not taking that cup of tea.